All right, you're live.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the shop. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Dynasty Diagnostic podcast. My name is Eitan Mosier. I'm here with Sam Lane. You can find him on Twitter at FFStompy. You can find myself at Eitan Mosier. We are the head technicians over here at Dynasty Diagnostic, and we are kind of just gonna knock a few things out this week. We've had a lot of news that we want to get into. And I think at the top of that list, shout out to Jesse Reeves. This is big news. Looks like after letting Phillip Rivers go, after having one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL for the past couple of seasons, the Chargers have traded Russell Okung for Try Turner at guard from the Carolina Panthers. This looks like an A-plus move. I'm really happy for Jesse and fans like him because I think the Chargers are going in the good direction with both this move and the next one we're going to talk about. But what do you think the impact of Try Turner is going to be on whoever's the starting quarterback out in, I guess, Los Angeles next season?
Well, I mean, like you said, the offensive line has always been kind of an issue, especially with pass blocking of late for Phillip Rivers. Of course, Phillip Rivers doesn't really move
at all
that well, we'll say. In fact, he played with a torn ACL at one point, which goes to show you that his play style he doesn't move at all. So this will definitely help there. I mean, I think the underlying question, though, is who is the quarterback there will make a difference. I mean, regardless, it's probably going to make a difference either way. 5-time Pro Bowler. You and I have been witness to Russell Okung, who's been better with Los Angeles, but was definitely somewhat of a liability with the Broncos. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes it better. I think the next thing we talk about will be a lot more fantasy relevant for us. But or is it? I think it's Try Turner. But I think it'll make things look good for that quarterback, or the offensive line will be good for the quarterback and the looks like newly cemented starting running back for the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just an issue of whether or not the Chargers can keep guys healthy. The Chargers have a very well-rounded team, at least on the offensive side of things. And when you think that guys like Derwin James are going to be coming back next year, on the defensive side, this is always a team that everybody thinks is dangerous year in, year out. They seem to just kind of get unlucky early on in the season and have to make up ground and aren't always necessarily able to do that. But I really do think that even with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, it doesn't need to be a star quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is already on the team. We all assume that they're going to draft Tua Tagovailoa. If they don't draft him, I assume they're going to grab another quarterback. I think that this is a situation where we can start to see a lot of upward mobility for some of the Chargers pieces that have kind of been in the background as of late, namely Mike Williams. I think that this can be a situation that everything is kind of wide open for the Chargers again. I don't think that Keenan Allen will necessarily be the established one in that offense. Not that he won't be, but I don't think it's a lock that he will just based on play style. One thing with Phillip Rivers that made Phillip Rivers the quarterback he was for the last few seasons, he's been a very, very high percentage kind of yak-oriented short throw quarterback. And I think that without him in the picture, we can start to see potentially just more opportunity for deep throws down the field and more opportunity for a guy that maybe can start to make a name for himself in this next couple of seasons. We already saw 10 touchdowns from Mike Williams about a season ago. We saw an increase in targets. Of course, the touchdowns regressed heavily last season, but I really think that this is a situation that really at least makes you look at some of the other pieces in the Chargers offense in a light that maybe you haven't before.
Well, I mean, it's very, very dependent on quarterback here. If they do get somebody like Bridgewater, sure, that's fine. I mean, do you really feel that much better with Tyrod Taylor than like Phillip Rivers? I don't really know.
Yeah, I just think that is a situation that at least you have a guy who's going to be able to do the things that you said that Phillip Rivers couldn't do, extend plays, and try to break open guys a little bit farther down the field. But that's not all the news that's actually coming out of Los Angeles right now. Austin Eckler has signed a brand new contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. But I personally don't think that this means that Austin Eckler is the secure, locked in.
No, it does. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. They just paid the dude over $6 million a year. It makes him the starting quarterback or running back.
It makes him the starting running back. It doesn't mean that he's going to get all the carries. I don't anticipate.
I didn't think that. I never said that. You are now putting words in my mouth. I said he is going to be the starting running back. I have always been on board with Justin Jackson. In fact, I've said many times that Justin Jackson is a buy low candidate here because it seems to me, and they very much could go with running back in the draft, but it seems to me that they feel comfortable enough with Austin Eckler, which they should because of what he did last season. And they feel comfortable enough with Justin Jackson, who has shown burst. That was my husky in the background. Hold on a second. She got back sooner than I thought.
That was the most adorable thing I've ever heard in my life.
You heard that husky howl. But anyway, Justin Jackson in his 2 seasons has shown, I mean, to be an efficient runner, a good enough runner, especially when Melvin Gordon is not there, which he will not be this season, where I think Justin Jackson gets 10 plus carries, but Austin Eckler leads, we'll say this, he leads the backfield in touches.
He leads the backfield in touches due to his reception.
So, yes, I still think Justin Jackson, I mean, dependent on how this is going, and it seems like trading for a guard means that they want to maybe emphasize the run a little bit more, especially because they probably don't feel that they're going to get that quarterback either in the draft or, I mean, especially as a rookie, but or somebody in free agency that will be the guy that you want to lean on with his arm. So trading for Trey Turner, signing Austin Eckler, I think it looks like they want to emphasize the run more. So, I mean, still buy Justin Jackson, but Austin Eckler should be he won't be the top 4, and maybe even I think he might have been the RB1 or RB2 when Melvin Gordon was out, that he was in 2019, but I still think RB1 is probably likely in this scenario if they do not go with running back in the draft.
No, I completely agree with you. I do think that RB1 is something that we're going to continue to see from a guy who's going to be heavily used in the receiving game. But I am not going out and saying that this does not mean that further competition is going to be brought into that backfield. I don't think the Chargers are done with this backfield as is. You just said a lot about Justin Jackson, and while some have belief in him, I think that there can also be a situation where we see the Chargers in the 3rd round, in the 4th round, start to spend some draft capital at the running back position to have a guy that they know can go behind Austin Eckler if he were to miss games.
Well, that's Justin Jackson.
I just think that this is a situation where I don't have the same level of faith in Justin Jackson as you do. And I don't think that – I think that if you haven't bought Austin Eckler already, you shouldn't take what just happened as a reason to go out and grab him.
Well,
candidate in this situation.
His buy window is over now because it obviously makes them. I mean, he was a restricted free agent before this.
He was going to get paid somewhere. That was never in question.
No,
Running
that's
backs
fine.
tend to hold their value from team to team, even in the next year that they're acquired. So,
the fact is that Austin Eckler's situation is far more clear at this point that he will be the lead running back on this team. I very much don't agree with that. There's nothing you can point to that says Justin Jackson can't be the change of pace or the backup or the guy if Eckler goes down. There's nothing you can point to that will say that to me because he has been productive in the time that he has received carries. He was extremely productive in college, which is a huge metric in terms of telling us whether they're going to be successful in the NFL or not. So, maybe if day 3 running back, sure, I can get behind that. I don't agree with now they're looking for somebody to back up Eckler because they have that guy on the roster who knows the system. And sure, they could get a rookie running back that or sign somebody, but I don't think it's to be the backup. I think it's to be that kind of, I guess, the insurance policy per se.
Now, do you think that Justin Jackson's role is going to significantly expand now that we're seeing Melvin Gordon go out the door?
No. Re-ask that question because I wasn't paying attention.
Do you think that Justin Jackson's role is going to expand now that we're seeing Melvin Gordon gone?
Well, we saw it expand in the time that Melvin Gordon was injured in 2018, and then at the beginning of last year when Melvin Gordon didn't play, he received more carries than he did the rest of the season. So, yes, I do. Like I said, I don't – they can't lean on Eckler like they did in those first few games. So, I do think Justin Jackson averages 10 carries a game, which, is that good? Probably not. It's not something that you want like your RB3 on a roster to do, but RB4, 5, which is where you're going to probably have him. He will get 10-ish, we'll say 10 touches a game, including receptions, which is, fine for a bye week fill-in.
Phillip Rivers has never had an ADOT of double digit. Let me say that again. Phillip Rivers has never had an ADOT of double digits in his career. In the last few seasons, we've seen him bounce from 8.4 to 8.2, 7.9, 8.5, kind of all in the range of shorter passing. Do you think if a new guy were to come in that potentially we could see less targets to a guy like Austin Eckler, especially maybe in favor of a guy like Hunter Henry, who kind of fulfills the same sort of underneath role, but has the potential for not larger plays down the field, but is going to find himself down the field a little bit quicker than Austin Eckler will most often?
I will say this. I'm not investing in any pass catchers at this point for the Chargers. In fact, I would be selling Keenan Allen, but that's beyond the point. I just the thing is I don't know what this QB situation looks like. If it's a rookie, if it's Tyrod Taylor, I don't think there's like one move they can make that I think makes everything better for everybody, and that's to sign Jameis Winston, which I don't think they will do. They don't have the cap space in the near future to do that. So, I would honestly be divesting of if anything, of the pass catchers. I do like Austin Eckler, but his time to buy is gone. I had already bought him this offseason. In fact, I had made a trade centered around Ezekiel Elliott for Austin Eckler plus, and I can't remember who the plus was. But beyond that, Hunter Henry's fine, but we don't know what this offense will look like without Phillip Rivers.
Let's move on to a guy that could potentially be the quarterback solution for Los Angeles Chargers, so they elect to go this route. Now, I'm not advocating that they should, because he actually just signed a 4-year, $88 million contract that is guaranteed through at least next season. It can be then opted out of in 2021, but Nick Foles is on the market. according to sources from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So what does this mean for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Obviously, this gives you a lot more faith that Gardner Minshew was going to be the starter going into 2020. But, I mean, what does this mean for the potential quarterback situations out there that are still a little bit blurry? I mean, obviously, there's still something to be said in Carolina as to who the starting quarterback is going to be, if that's going to be Cam, if he's healthy enough to play. There's still a situation in Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians has been saying that he is definitely open to looking for options to replace Jameis, but is Nick Foles the guy that he means is going to make him actually make that decision and not just give Jameis maybe a 2-year same level money as a franchise deal type contract? Is Nick Foles going to make a serious impact on another team, or do we think that what we saw in Philadelphia with Nick Foles was just in the right place at the right time, actually in a couple of different spells, and those are really the places where he's going to be most successful? And then outside of that, maybe we're not necessarily seeing a quarterback that can actually elevate the level of play of the players around him.
Well, I mean, good luck trying to find – this is a Brock Osweiler type situation to me. Good luck trying to find a suitor who will trade for that. I liked the idea, and I don't know who I talked to it about, but of the Dolphins trading for Nick Foles, and much like Brock Osweiler, where I believe Cleveland or to the Texans sent a second-round pick with Brock Osweiler to basically eat the contract. I could see that happening with Nick Foles, where somebody eats that contract, but they get like a second round or a second round and more to eat the contract. But
the thing with the Brock Osweiler deal was he was guaranteed money, I think, for at least a couple of years out. Nick Foles, he's guaranteed a boatload, but it's $22 million this year, and then he's actually eligible to be opted out of in 2021.
That's what I'm saying, though. You have to let me finish my thoughts, Aton. You fuck.
You just have to make your thoughts faster.
Oh, says the guy. Yeah. Oh, this is super pot kettle here. Holy shit. That was the point, though, was yes, he is owed a ton this year, but next year his dead cap is $12 million. Well, it's $12.5 million pre-June 1st. So they could save over $14 million against the cap next year by cutting him. So somebody like Miami garnering or gaining picks who is not going to contend this year, but can get picks in 2021. I don't know why that wouldn't be a good deal, because you get extra picks and they have over $100 million in cap space.
Is there really a marked difference from Nick Foles to Ryan Fitzmagic, though? I mean, I
don't even care if he plays. I don't care if he plays. That's not the point. The point is to gain picks. The point is to cut him the following year and save money against the cap. But it doesn't matter who the starting quarterback is. It is about – because, look at Brock Osweiler. No,
it's about buying the second round.
Yeah, Cleveland traded for Brock Osweiler not to start him, but to cut him. And that's I think that is what we're talking about with Nick Foles here. It was a bad decision by Jacksonville, which is at this point, is it really that surprising? But yeah, we're talking about a guy who had one good season with Philadelphia and then a half a good season several years later. And in between that time, he had almost quit football. And he hasn't been the same outside of Philadelphia. So it's not something I don't think anybody's trading for this guy and thinking, oh yeah, he can be our starter. I think somebody's thinking, well, that cap space is terrible, but we can get other things like picks in 2021. I don't think Nick Foles is going to be a starter for anybody.
Now, how real is this news coming from New England with Tom Brady? Obviously, he's being linked everywhere. He's being linked with every team that has a quarterback issue to solve this offseason. One interesting team is actually the 49ers. Word is that John Lynch was not completely thrilled with Jimmy Garoppolo's play this last season and might be looking for a guy like Brady is there going to be a situation where you think Brady, straight out kind of takes somebody's job, or do you think this is a situation where Brady finds himself in a situation where he's either on the New England Patriots for the remainder of his time in the NFL, or he's signed to a team with no real option at this point, or at least nobody that's been really tested, like maybe something like a Los Angeles Chargers with Tyrod Taylor not necessarily kind of making the grade as a starting quarterback in his previous stints?
Well, so first and foremost, and I'm going to hammer this home because I got people coming after me about this the last time I said it. Jimmy G's the 49ers, I believe, can save something like
Jimmy G got all his money up front. All his guaranteed money was up front in the first couple of seasons. He had over $30 million.
Sorry, they can save $22 million against the cap if they cut him. So if they do sign Tom Brady, they are going to cut him.
And they have the money to gain to be able to pay Tom Brady by doing that. Honestly.
Or I honestly think that they move on this offseason anyway because of that $22 million. Like Jimmy G is not worth $26.6 million. He's not that quarterback. And I've made this argument again before. Nick Mullins produced similar numbers in 2018 to what Jimmy G produced last season. And he's an undrafted free agent. So, a fraction of the price. So either they sign Tom Brady and kind of try and get this win now window, or they cut Jimmy G, let Nick Mullins take over, and then invest in the defense some more, and they're still in the win now window. So I don't think Jimmy G is a starting quarterback for San Francisco next year.
I wouldn't go so far as to say I don't think he's the starting quarterback, but I certainly think that, everything that we've been saying on this podcast pretty much for the entire year was that this is a contract that, the guy making the money is not necessarily worth that, and the team has a lot of flexibility on its contracts, on this contract and on Jerick McKinnon's contract. A lot of the 49ers contracts over the last couple of seasons have been really, really heavily front-loaded, giving the team flexibility 2 years down the line. And this is really a situation where even if you think that they could not afford Brady based on what they actually have available this year and who they actually have to pay, they have a lot of money that they can get access to very quickly because of the really smart planning by John Lynch over the last couple of seasons in acquiring players with heavily front-loaded contracts. Now let's go to a very, very dysfunctional franchise. The Washington Redskins have finally agreed to let Trent Williams seek a trade.
Did you just say agreed? You just said agreed.
Did I just said agreed?
Nope.
Finally agreed.
That's the title of the show now.
Agreed. I love it.
Agreed.
But they finally agreed to let Trent Williams actually go out and see if he can find himself a deal. This is something that, the Cincinnati Bengals could have told you with the whole AJ Green situation, probably should have done last season. That Trent was a little bit more amenable to kind of working things out with the franchise, but I think this shows us that ship has sailed. So Trent Williams, at least when he was playing about 2 seasons ago, was one of the best tackles in the National Football League. There's still a lot of hope in guys like Darius Geis. We still don't know what to do with Adrian Peterson. Obviously, Bryce Love is still there as well. Is there anyone in this backfield that you think is worth even a flyer at this point? Or does this news, along with the news of just what the offense was last year, kind of the last point in the nail of the coffin of a guy that a lot of people had a lot of hope for in Darius Geis?
Bryce Love. I would be taking a flyer on Bryce Love. He at the very least will be a full year removed from an ACL tear. He's a pass catcher. I mean, he's in the same vein as Christian McCaffrey, obviously coming out of Stanford. Not to mention that you have a new coach, right? Did the Redskins get a new coach?
Yeah, they did. And I don't know if Bryce Love and Christian McCaffrey had the same.
All right, hold on.
Like,
no, now
really
you're going to put words in my mouth again. I said in the same vein. I never said Bryce Love would be Christian McCaffrey.
I'm in the same vein with Denzel Washington. That type of same.
No, now you're comparing skin colors. What are you talking about? Oh my God! It's the point was they did. I thought Ron Rivera was the head coach. Now I sound stupid, but the idea being that Ron Rivera and I don't know how much of an effect he has on the offensive play calling, but we saw what Christian McCaffrey did under Ron Rivera for the past 3 seasons. The point with Bryce Love is he is a all-around running back. He can catch the ball. He's a great runner. So him going into Ron Rivera's system again, dependent on how much of an impact he has on that offensive play calling. Bryce Love could be a sleeper here because I mean, I'm not trusting 38-year-old Adrian. I know he's like 35, but Adrian Peterson. I can't do it with Darius Geis anymore with those knee injuries. And I understand Bryce Love had his ACL, but he's over a year removed, and that was the only injury he's had. So if there's a flyer I'm taking, it's on Bryce Love here.
I'm not heavily investing in any of the running backs in that offense. This has been an offensive line that's been a shambles for as long as you can kind of think of. And now they're going to have to replace a guy like Trent Williams, which was really one of the main talents they had on that offensive line, even though they didn't have him for last season. You also couple that with just the fact that so many bodies exist in that backfield that they're definitely going to be taking touches from each other in some way or another. And I don't see the point in really paying anything for any of them because I don't think that you're really gaining anything from having any of these guys on your team at this current moment. I think that they can be switched out kind of very quickly and nobody would really bat an eye. So I definitely understand the want to, I mean, there's not that much that you have to invest into acquire a guy like Bryce Love. And maybe for that reason, you kind of take a look at him and send a flyer that way. But I mean, I really do kind of seeing this from the full perspective. If you take a step back, even in a best case scenario, what are you really likely to gain from grabbing one of 3 guys in this offense with this offensive line?
Okay, but are you going to hold on to a 4th or 5th round rookie pick? Really? I would rather take the guy who is in a backfield who has question marks.
I think you would have to swing. I think you would have to give a 3rd at this point right now. And I think
get out of here. Get out of here.
People have said his name. His name is on the lips of many in the Dynasty community. And for that reason, that's kind of what his value would be.
Okay,
right now,
but even if it is a 3rd, I would rather take the chance on Bryce Love. It's a 3rd round rookie pick. The chances of hitting on a 3rd round rookie pick is like minuscule.
Higher than the chances of hitting on Bryce Love in this back.
Very much disagree with that.
We're just going to have to agree to disagree. But now we're going to go to the one thing that affects us both as fans. Jalen Ramsey was traded to the Los Angeles Rams last season. His partner in crime, AJ Bouye, had to play the rest of the season on that team in the Jalen Ramsey role, and now he's going to be doing the same for the likely Chris Harris-less Denver Broncos this season for a 4th round pick. I have to start by saying I think that this is an absolute steal. AJ Bouye, of course, didn't have the best of seasons last year, but there was a lot of turmoil last year. And we've seen from AJ Bouye, not necessarily since he's got the big contract, but a couple of years when he was still playing on his rookie deal, he was one of the best corners in the NFL. Do we think that he can regain that in Denver and he can be what Chris Harris was to us on the outside, whereas Chris Harris did it more in the slot? Do you think that AJ Bouye can really be that CB1 for the Broncos this season?
Yes, I do. I mean, Chris Harris definitely had lost a step. AJ Bouye, I believe, is 3 years younger. But we've seen AJ Bouye excel in the NFL, and not just once. It's not just that one season. And we're talking about a defensive, him going to a defensive based head coach who is highly respected as a defensive schemer. He's going to a defensive coordinator who was a secondary coach for Chicago, and Ed Donatel. I like you. I think this was a fantastic trade for them. I think you get an upgrade in Bouye over Chris Harris. Now they just need to make another, I think, significant signing at cornerback, and I feel very good about this defense this year.
Yeah, with Justin Simmons likely to be franchise tagged, I think we can see, like you said, with the addition of probably one more corner, one of the best defensive backfields in the NFL this season from the Denver Broncos. I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
From 2016 through 2018, he was arguably the best cover corner in football, just overshadowed by his teammate Jalen Ramsey and a couple others. But I think last year, like you said, was somewhat of an anomaly, and getting into a better situation, which with a better defense, I think will help him tremendously.
All right, so that is going to be the end of our welcoming intro type discussion here. We're now going to move into our 5-point inspection, and we're going to start. I'm not even going to start on this one. I got to get my thoughts together. I got to get my feelings together. I'm deeply hurt by this one, but a lot of people are thinking that Matthew Stafford isn't somebody you should be acquiring right now, and are thinking Matthew Stafford is past his prime and that he's not even going to be the starting quarterback in Detroit next season, and I don't understand it. Can you please explain to me what's going on in this crazy world we're living in?
Well, I mean, I guess I get the trade rumors. It does make sense because I mean, Detroit needs to make some moves to be a contender. They do need to make, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But here's the thing. Stafford was the QB3 last season before being injured. He's on a point per game basis. And this was with Darrell Bevel, the guy who was going to eliminate the pass in Detroit altogether. But you have Matt Stafford. I doubt he gets traded. He wants to stay in Detroit. I don't know what they would trade him for. If they're going to trade him, that means that they are going with a quarterback, but it just doesn't make any sense because they're pretty well set on the offensive side of the ball if you really think about it. Because
he's also signed through 2022.
Yeah. So
I
mean, he's only 31, 32. So it's not like he's over the hill by any stretch of the imagination. He's just coming off one of his better seasons of his career. I understand if you're worried about the injuries, but all indications say his back is fully healed after he didn't play with it and then healed it this offseason. But you have Kenny Golladay, you have Marvin Jones, you have TJ Hawkinson, arguably one of the top 5 pass catching trios on paper in the league.
I don't know about top 5.
You say that, and then try and think of 5 better.
5 better.
I mean, you don't have to do it right now, but really think about you. I mean, you can do a thought exercise here.
The Bucks.
Okay.
The Atlanta Falcons.
Don't agree with the Bucks.
I would say the Carolina Panthers as well.
Disagree with that.
I would probably say the Chargers have one of the best pass catching groups. Like there's anyway. Get on with it.
Hold on. Top 10. I said arguably top 5. I can make an argument that they're top 5. Not to mention they have Kerryon Johnson. They have one of the better offensive lines in the league. So their offense is pretty well set, especially if TJ Hawkinson takes a step forward. Now, their defense sucks. So what makes more sense? Chase Young or getting a quarterback at this point? Chase Young makes more sense. Now like I said, they need to make moves this offseason in free agency to better that defense, but trading him makes no sense at this point unless you're going to go full rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, again, Matthew Stafford was one of the best quarterbacks in the league last season when he was playing. I mean, pretty much everything you could look at bears up to that. It's not just that he got the fantasy QB3 finish. In fact, if you give me just a second here, edit this out, Sam, I am going to be able to tell you exactly what Matthew Stafford did. If my internet would work today. There we go. Matthew Stafford actually had 3.5% completion percentage above expected last season. It had 10.5 ADOT, which was one of the highest of his career. He had 36 yards in 8 games, and he didn't play the full 8 games. He almost had 20 touchdowns in those 8 games. He had a pacer rating that, yes, was maybe a little bit lower than we've seen in seasons past, but that was just because he had a lot of volume this year. We saw a really good season from Matthew Stafford, and there's really no reason for Detroit to go ahead and mess up something that they already have locked down for the next 3 seasons, like I was mentioning before with his contract situation. Matthew Stafford is going to be in Detroit this next season, and he is probably one of the best values in Superflex leagues right now because of the public perception of his injury, like you mentioned, and people staying away from him because of that reason.
By the way, this is why late round QB is a thing. Matt Stafford can easily be a top 5 QB next season, and he's going around QB like he's going in the late teens right now in terms of startup drafts.
A lot of people are really excited about this current crop of running backs. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor with his 4.39 blew the doors off some people's expectations for what the running backs are going to be this season. But a lot of people are forgetting that there's a lot of good backs that are probably going to be out of a job, at least initially this year. Devonta Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons is probably one of them. I mean, he's likely to get cut. He could potentially get in starting role somewhere. We don't know if Lamar Miller is healthy enough. If he is, we could potentially see him somewhere. And Melvin Gordon, obviously, the guy that we were talking about, is probably going to be out of the picture in San Diego now with the Austin Eckler signing. He's going to take one of those RB landing spots as well. So does this make you start to maybe wonder if we're going to see as many, I guess, huge opportunities given to running backs this year than maybe we've previously expected?
Well, I would laugh very heartily if Melvin Gordon did not get signed, especially with the backs, like you said, that are in this class. Lamar Miller, I'm not worried about at all. I mean, at no point is he going to garner enough of a salary to be a starter anywhere. Jordan Howard's an interesting one because he could be relatively cheap, but I'm not really worried. There's a lot of play. I think we've seen it enough now that talent overcomes that I'm just not worried about those starting running backs. In fact, I hope things like Melvin Gordon gets signed somewhere, a prime spot. So you see some of those talented guys, those talented running backs drop a little bit because they land in a subpar place. So no, I mean, with the free agents at running back right now, Melvin Gordon's, I mean, I think Derrick Henry has to go back to Tennessee, so I'm not worried about that. Melvin Gordon's the next best available, and honestly, I sit here and I wonder, is anybody going to be willing to pay that guy, especially after what we've seen with Todd Gurley and David Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody is going to take a dive. I think Melvin Gordon does have an established reputation across the league for being a good running back, regardless of what, the numbers bear out in terms of what the replaceability is at that position. I do think that there's a team out there with money like the Dolphins that's probably going to make the stupid move and go ahead and sign him. I would just want people to be wary. I mean, of course, yeah, talent you would think and hope kind of wins out over time. And we're seeing a lot of turnover at the running back position. So if there's really an opportunity to do that, that would be the position to do that. That said, I do think that people kind of need to temper their expectations with what they think is going to happen. I mean, David Johnson is still out in Arizona. People are saying that that's a prime spot. Who really knows? You also obviously have to kind of understand that at least the veterans are going to get the first crack at the whip. And if you're buying a running back in this class, if you're drafting a running back, maybe not necessarily needing a running back, but just because that's the guy at your slot that you should be taking, I think it makes a lot of sense to start to deal those picks if you're in a position where doing so might give you an immediate piece, because you might have to wait a little bit longer than you previously thought for this class to actually show you what it is. Now let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater. We talked about Nick Foles not too long ago. Bridgewater is probably the next hottest free agent on the market after Foles, after Brady, of course, and potentially Jameis Winston if he's a free agent. Do we think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to find himself somewhere in a starting role? Do you think that he's going to end up in a situation very similar to what he's been in the last couple of seasons, a backup, but probably one of the best backups in the league?
Well, I guess the cop-out answer is I don't know. But especially with this QB class where it's at, I mean, 4 or 5 pretty good QBs, starting QBs. Potential
Herbert and Jordan Love have gotten a lot of, I guess, very, very high touted recognition in the past few weeks. They were always thought of as, quarterback option C, option D, so on and so forth. But a lot of people have been saying that they could probably go in the top half of the first round of the draft.
Well, and then, I mean, for some reason, people keep forgetting about Jalen Hurd, and especially with the current, I guess, shift in quarterback play with guys like Lamar Jackson and the other guy.
Kyler Murray.
Oh my God, Kyler Murray. All right. And I'm not cutting that out so everybody can understand I have brain farts.
There you go. There's your
extremely imperfect
title of the podcast moment right there.
I just forgot a name. I didn't create a word altogether. Agreed. But yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurd, another potential starting quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, this class is pretty loaded at quarterback, and there's a lot of QBs in free agency. So that's interesting. Honestly, I think Teddy Bridgewater makes more sense as a bridge.
So would you put him in Los Angeles? Like, would he be the ideal guy in Los Angeles?
I think his best fit is New England, really. I think that'd be a perfect fit because I view him as a guy who isn't like going to be the guy that blows the doors off of a stadium, but he is good enough. He's a game manager who won't make mistakes, and that's all that some like New England needs. So I think that's the ideal fit. I mean, if it's Los Angeles, I wouldn't be doing that because I don't think that makes enough of a jump for me that above Tyrod Taylor to make any sense signing there. I mean, then again, I don't think this will happen. Las Vegas is another one, but that doesn't make sense because I think they're trying to right now get butts and seats, and I think that's either a Jameis Winston or a Tom Brady job. So it's hard to point to where Bridgewater would land. I would love Bridgewater to land in New England. I think that would be a great fit. And I honestly probably ideal fit right now with the openings currently.
Stylistically, Teddy Bridgewater is at least last season has been a shorter average depth of target type quarterback anyway. So you would think that with inside receivers like Julian Edelman, like really what we think that N'Keal Harry's best position is, he could potentially thrive in a system that allows him to get those short completions and rely on Yak a lot of the time. So I tend to agree with that. But I think that Tom Brady is going to stay put. I think that this is all grandstanding at the current moment. All right, and we have a few more questions here, but we're going to save these for next week because we're going to get to this week's Dynasty Diagnostic right now. And it's our episode 59. And our episode 59 roster was submitted by Jordan Palmquist. You can find him on Twitter at Jordan Palmquist. Please be sure to give him a follow. Go ahead and go to Dino Diagnostic on Twitter. Give us a follow as well. Smash that subscribe button and leave us a review at the link in the description on iTunes and or Podbean if you want to get on the show. And Sam also wants to tell you to please send in your settings.
I'm glad you're doing this. I was gonna start screaming here. Oh my God. I mean, we're on episode 59. We've been doing this for well over a year now. When you send in your rosters, we need a picture of the roster or a list or what have you. We need the settings, the scoring settings, the number of starters, the picks. We need all of the information. Don't just send us your roster and then go diagnose me. I don't know how to diagnose you because I don't know how many teams are in this stupid goddamn league. I don't know what the scoring is. I don't know what your starting settings are, though I can figure it out. Make it easier on us so we don't have to guess and we can actually give you accurate diagnoses. Quit being idiots. Listen to the goddamn podcast. I'm going to stab somebody. Somebody's going to die.
All right. So apparently you'll make Sam very, very upset if you don't send in the settings. So I don't think he's actually going to stab you, but he might stab your dog. For your dog's safety, please be sure to go ahead and send in those settings.
I will not stab. I don't stab dogs. Dogs are better than people. I will stab you.
All right, let's get into it. So it is a 12-team.
Did you lose it or what? What happened here? Are you dead?
Jesus. Okay.
Did you die?
No.
Fuck happened.
Anyway, it's a 12-team league. We have, let's see, what do we have here? We have PPR, Superflex, start one quarterback.
Start that shit over. Start that over. That was awful.
It's a 12-team league, a PPR, a Superflex, start one quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, and 1 Superflex league. At quarterback, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, Big Ben, Andy Dalton. There's been a lot of talk about him potentially moving teams this season as well. I mean, as opposed to being a free agent, because I think that everyone knows that he's not going to be the starter in Cincinnati next season. At running back, we have Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Damian Williams, Kareem Hunt. Wide receiver, Evans, Galladay, Metcalf, Jeffrey, Preston Williams. Tight end, Ertz, Goddard, Jonnu Smith, and Gerald Everett. Let's just be weird and start at wide receiver today. Mike Evans, Kenny Galladay, DK Metcalf, Alshon Jeffrey, Preston Williams, and a bunch of guys that are about as good as Corey Davis, including the king himself, Corey Davis.
Damn.
So at wide receiver, obviously Mike Evans, top 5 wide receiver. Kenny Galladay, I think approaching top 5 wide receiver. Top 10, top 12 wide receiver currently. DK Metcalf, I think he's pretty likely to be at the back end of a wide receiver 2 this year with the volume that he garnered last year. Alshon Jeffrey, I don't want him. The Philadelphia Eagles don't want him. I don't know why they extended his contract. I don't think he cares why they extended his contract. He's just happy to be earning that paycheck. I think he's still a good receiver, a decent receiver. Injury has always been an issue for him, and he's not necessarily somebody that you can rely on. Preston Williams, you might like him as well. Also have to acknowledge that he was out with an injury this past season. So we don't necessarily know how he's going to bounce back from that, at least initially. So we're really looking at Evans, Galladay, Metcalf here. And between those 3, I would really like a little bit more safety at a wide receiver 3 position. I feel a little bit more confident if I could have DK as my wide receiver 4. So I'd be looking for somebody in the vein of a Julian Edelman, maybe not necessarily for this team, because I think maybe there's a couple of pieces here, but just a guy that is going to be able to be a reliable kind of 10 to 12 point earner week in, week out. So is there something else that you're looking for on this wide receiver group, or do you think that we're kind of fine as currently constructed?
I mean, I'm a little bit higher on Preston Williams than you are, but it's a valid point. We don't know exactly what he's going to look like coming off an ACL. He's probably going to miss he will miss most of the offseason workouts. Probably won't come back until middle of training camp, I'm guessing. So if he didn't get injured, I'd feel a lot better about him as your wide receiver 4. Regardless, Preston Williams is a guy I'm buying this offseason, so I think he's a great guy to hold on to. And then you have 2 other guys that I like as buys this offseason, but not guys that you really want to rely on. Paris Campbell and Miles Boykin, both of whom have had great years in college. Didn't have great years last year. Paris Campbell mostly because of injury. Miles Boykin because he was basically 4th or 5th on the depth chart.
He wasn't a tight end, so
right. But I like buying those guys cheap as well. But I agree with Eitan here. Like, you have three guys. I mean, your top 3 are fantastic. After that, there's a cliff. I mean, Fitz could be productive this year. Corey Davis could be that later breakout guy. Like, I think he's going into year 4 now. Year 4, year 5. Like,
that they don't know if they're going to grant his 5th-year option. Obviously, that would be next year would be the offseason. They have to make that decision. But I mean, that tells you kind of where the team's at.
Right. He just has not lived up to his potential. And whether you believe it's because of the Titans or because of him, whatever, it doesn't matter. He just hasn't. So yeah, you definitely need at least a 4th guy here that I would feel more comfortable with. And we'll talk about this later, but you do have some assets you could trade to get that 4th guy here, but you also have holes at at another position here that you're going to need to fill as well.
Who would be your ideal player to insert at that wide receiver 4 position?
I mean,
that is easily acquirable.
That's a little bit tough. Honestly, somebody like AJ Green's not awful there. I think he has potential to be a wide receiver 1 this season. If you are looking at a win now move, AJ Green's really not a bad option to look at here. Some of those guys, I mean, John Brown is not a bad guy either, and I don't think you're going to spend a whole lot of draft capital to acquire somebody like that. But like we said, Evans and Golladay, you're perfectly fine. Those top 2. Metcalf's probably is likely a top 24 wide receiver. You just need a guy who's going to either explode or on the scene or regain their former selves, and can just be a bye-week fill-in, really. And so guys like AJ Green, some of those older guys, AJ Green, John Brown, like, are great buys right now because I think they have at least another season or 2 of good football yet.
If you do want to be a little bit more risky with this and you kind of just want to acquire quantity and see what comes up at your wide receiver 4 position, if you don't really want to invest real resources here, I would be looking at Hunter Renfrow. I would also be looking at Steven Sims. Sam mentioned Miles Boykin. If you can acquire enough of those guys, maybe at the cost of something like a 3rd-round pick, I think that would be well worth it because that would give you the added flexibility to then go and attack other positions and just hope that one of those guys that you happen to acquire for that wide receiver 4 spot comes good. And I think between the guys I mentioned and the guys Sam mentioned, there'll be 1 or 2 in there that are at least going to provide PPR value that's going to be able to kind of keep that position afloat while you focus on other things. So now let's look at tight end. He has the Philadelphia duo, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. I want you to really notice how I ordered that there. Jonnu Evans and Gerald Everett. I mean, 4 tight ends, I think that are all viable plays. Obviously, Zach Ertz is the real star here. Dallas Goedert, I think, has the potential to be just that as well in the absence of Zach Ertz. But there's also the understanding that there is a lot of work to do in terms of Philadelphia pass catchers. So this might just be a situation where both of the guys stay in town. Do we think that, I mean, maybe there's too much depth here and that maybe some of this can be invested elsewhere? Do you think that in what doesn't look like a tight end premium league, you'd even be able to use one of these guys to acquire a major asset to help you somewhere else?
I mean, I think moving Ertz, you definitely can, because he still has the probably top 3 tight end allure. So look for somebody who doesn't have a tight end, see what they have. I think you could use Zach Ertz to acquire that for that wide receiver 4. And plus, I mean, I think you could get a little bit more for him than that. But yeah, I mean, that's the first place I would look is going into this season, Goddard and Jonnu Smith are great options at tight end. Because it's not tight end premium, you don't need much more than that. So I would be trading Zach Ertz here, trying to either fill that hole at wide receiver 4 or fill the hole at running back, which we'll talk about here soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. Zach Ertz is definitely the prize here. I just saw in one of my leagues, Zach Ertz go straight up for a guy like Leonard Fournette, and I think that type of trade would really, really change a lot of things on this team. So I do think that is the move to make here because, like Sam was saying, in a non-T premium league, Goddard, Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett, these are guys that you're going to be able to kind of pick their spots and be okay and get tight end 8 production over the course of the season, which should be just enough to at least keep you afloat at that position. But at running back, we have Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Damian Williams, Kareem Hunt. And then it kind of goes downhill. Then it's Darwin Thompson, Patrick Laird, who was the man of the moment last season. DeAndre Washington, I'm guessing there's a lot of Washingtons in the NFL, Sam. Thank you for that. Mike Boone, and then Darrell Williams.
It doesn't matter. It's DeAndre Washington, but it doesn't matter. Because once you get past Hunt or maybe even Darwin Thompson, it's like, who cares? In terms of this, much like with your wide receivers, top 3, I feel very good about. I think Damian Williams, I think they could probably make like a day 3 move, but I really don't think that the Chiefs are going to invest heavily in running back this season. Damian Williams looked fantastic at the end of last year and into the playoffs, obviously. Should have been Super Bowl MVP. But after that, it gets kind of dicey. Yes, Hunt is still probably likely to stay in Cleveland, but goddamn, that dude cannot make smart decisions for the life of him. And you never know, much like Josh Gordon in Cleveland, when he's going to get suspended again. So, I mean, Hunt will be fine as long as he's on the field, but I would feel better with Chubb and Eckler if I had a RB3, RB4. I would feel a lot better with the depth here. My issue with this roster is the depth on running back and wide receiver because and to be realistic, the guy who said Jordan had mentioned that this was the 2019 runner-up team, and I look at it and I'm like, how did that happen? But really at the end of the day, it's because nobody got injured.
Well, Big Ben got injured, but except for him.
Well, but that's fine. But he was able to survive with Jameis and Baker Mayfield. But having Evans, Galladay, and Metcalf not be injured, having Chubb and Eckler still be fantastic running backs for you, and having those tight ends, you didn't have much to overcome in terms of injuries. So I think you need to at the end of the day, you need to build depth here. And I think getting an RB2 or RB3, RB4 makes me feel a lot better about these running backs. Cause I do believe Damian Williams, maybe it wasn't the year last year when I said he could be a top 5 running back, but he can still be an RB1 if he is healthy. But that is a big if because he's been injured each of the last 2 seasons, right? I believe.
Yep. But portions of them.
But yeah, so to me, if you were able to get somebody like a Devin Singletary, even like a Boston Scott, honestly, I would feel a lot better about this team.
I think all you need to do is go out and get Gus Edwards. I think that's the only name that you really need to add to this team because I like it as currently constructed. Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Damian Williams. I'm willing to bank on those three, even if Damian misses time. I mean, Chubb and Eckler should be able to get you through, or if one of those guys goes down, then you have to hope for a little bit of luck with him. But I think with those three, that's a solid three to start with. With Kareem Hunt behind that, again, there's risk there, but if you're willing to accept that, I really just think a guy that's going to get touches. I mean, he had over 700 yards last year. We don't know if Mark Ingram is going to be healthy all season. He was last year. He hasn't been throughout his entire career. And at the end of last season, he even started to get hurt as well. So I do think that just a guy, a solid backup in a good situation that's not going to cost you much of anything is probably the guy that you want to add here. And I think that you'd be fine with depth at running back. At quarterback, you have Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, Big Ben, and Andy Dalton. Jameis, Mayfield, and Ben, they're all going to be starting somewhere, in my opinion. I think Jameis is still going to be where he is right now. So I don't think that there's much to worry about there. I think you even have the crazy upside with him. You have that same sort of upside with Big Ben as well. I mean, it can all come crashing down with, away games, but at least for the most part, you should be able to do a lot with these two quarterbacks, and we have to at least kind of assume that we're going to see some sort of resurgence from Baker Mayfield last season because, I mean, whatever anyone has to say about Baker at this point, I think we can all agree that he is likely somewhere in between what he showed in his first and his most recent season, and that is still probably within a shout of quarterback 12, quarterback 10 in the league. I really do think that is excellent for this team because you don't even have to worry about replacing anybody in this trio other than Ben anytime soon, and you probably have a year or two to worry about that. So is there something that you change in this quarterback room?
I mean, not for this season. Big Ben obviously just started throwing, so keep an eye on that. I think you'll be fine for this season and probably next season, but at some point you need to start thinking about getting another quarterback. So, but you don't need to worry about it right now. And especially if Andy Dalton somehow ends up being a starting quarterback somewhere.
That was going to be my next question. Do we think that Andy Dalton is going to find at least maybe one of those kind of write-it out roles where he's just a starter for a year while somebody like Tua gets healthy or somebody behind him gets a little bit of experience in the NFL?
I mean, that's a tough part is, where would he go? I mean, Oakland definitely not.
Oakland has him in Derek.
Yeah, he has Derek. He has his clone. Doubtful in Tampa Bay. I mean, where else do we have openings that make sense? I mean, not going to be Cincinnati, obviously. I doubt it with Miami because you have Fitzpatrick down there. So I think he definitely can be a bridge QB somewhere. But right now, I mean, you may as well hold on to him just in case because there's just no point. He has no value right now, and I have no idea where he'll land.
All right, so now let's get to the picks, and the picks can solve a lot of problems on this team because you happen to have two of the picks in the first round. You have the 105 and the 111. With the 105 in a Superflex league, you can most definitely get one of those top kind of blue chip level running back prospects that everybody seems to be fawning over at that pick. You could probably even have your wide receiver of choosing for the most part at 105. At 111, whatever position that you didn't target the first time, you can probably get at that second pick. But you also have the option of packaging both of these picks for a guy that might be, more of what you need this particular season. The 105 and the 111, I think in most drafts probably wouldn't be able to buy you much. I think in this draft, or at least the perception of this draft in the Dynasty community, that you can get quite a bit for the 105 and 111. I mean, you can shoot as high as looking at a guy like Aaron Jones or someone kind of, I would say, in that RB 6 to 8 range. Is that what you would do, or would you hold your water and just make the picks as instructed on draft day, knowing that, your major problem with this team, as we both agree, is depth?
I would keep the 105 because you're going to get one of the top 4 backs, maybe one of the top 3 running backs. And so, I mean, that helps you on the running back side of things. I would keep 105 personally. 111, I would definitely trade for to help with that, or maybe even combine with Ertz and get an even better wide receiver there. Get maybe a Tyler Boyd or I think Tyler Boyd level of wide receiver would help you tremendously. So that's what I'm doing with them. 105 helps you at running back. 111 probably helps you at wide receiver. I would not be using that pick to draft rookie wide receivers. I will always advise never to draft rookie wide receivers unless you're taking swings in the 2nd or 3rd round.
If someone offered you Cortland Sutton or DJ Moore for, I don't know, that first round pick, 105 and 111, or 111 and Ertz, is that a deal that you'd be looking at?
Yes. So, I mean, either way, you would get help at wide receiver, and you still have something like Ertz or that 105 to get the running back that you need, the running back help that you need. So yeah, that's definitely something I would do, because Evans, Galladay, Sutton, Evans, Galladay, Moore makes me feel really good about those wide receivers.
All right, so this is a Saturn. You know, they don't make parts for this anymore, but it's a decent car. It still probably runs, which is just strange to say, but it's well built, at least the ones that I've come around in my life. It's nothing flashy. It's obviously, I don't think that this is going to consistently get you to even where you got last year. I would say that there was a bit of injury fortune that you got last year that probably got you over the hump. But I mean, in the same way, if you kind of get that in reverse and you're able to have Damian Williams for this year and he's not replaced or at least heavily impacted by the draft, I think that this could be a team that is a strong competitor for years to come. You have a lot of youth in this team. Evans is just entering his prime, as is Galladay. Metcalf hasn't yet. Dallas Goedert, Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett, you really have nothing to worry about at tight end for the foreseeable future. Jameis Winston's going to get a contract somewhere. Baker Mayfield is young enough where maybe you want to chase upside in the next couple of drafts in terms of looking for that third QB to replace Big Ben. But I think the bones of this team are there. So I would say that this is pretty positive team building here. It's just an issue where you need to decide what you want to do with the 105 and the 111 on this team to make sure that next year you don't have to rely on having a team that's not really being heavily impacted by things out of your control, like injuries in the NFL. But I like this team. I think that this is a good squad. I think that this is well built. And I don't think that there are so many changes that this is a situation where we need to take this to the junkyard.
So this is a older Jeep for me. Rugged, like will get the job done. Not like like Eitan said, flashy, but one of those things that like people like to drive around in and take the doors off and sometimes take mudding or four-wheeling, but it's older. So taking this thing four-wheeling, while it could definitely serve its purpose, it could also
serve its purpose.
Yeah, you heard it here first. I mean, you're trying to make fun of me, but I still didn't make up a word, Eitan.
You just serve purses, man. Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
It's fine.
Regardless, you could go mudding or four-wheeling with it, it'll be fine, but you also run the risk that a wheel could fall off or an axle breaks and you are SOL. So beef that thing up, get it serviced, get new parts on it, get a wide receiver, get a running back, trade away Ertz, trade away that old part. And I think you'll be fine going into the season.
All right, that is it for today. Please make sure to follow your head technicians, FF Stompy for Sam on Twitter and Eitan Mozia for myself. And please make sure to go to the Dynasty Diagnostic podcast feed on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps the podcast grow and reach more listeners. Wow, we both can just not talk today. This just isn't happening.
It's been fun.
But You should also please make sure to go ahead, check out our Patreon, check out Dynasty Outhouse's store at Store Envy. FF Pod Shirts, I believe, is the name. Go ahead, look at that, see if you want to get any stickers for not only this podcast, but many, many more out there, including Dynasty Outhouse's Trade Addicts podcast. And thanks for making it to the Dynasty Diagnostic Service Center today. Please be sure to keep up with all your scheduled maintenance and catch us next time to ensure quality performance. See you on your next visit. Sorry we couldn't talk today.